Newt Gingrich last week at the Heritage Foundation made the statement that this is the third opportunity, the Trump presidency represents the third opportunity to end the Franklin Delano Roosevelt system or order. He didn't use the phrase New Deal, but, basically what he was talking about, FDR brought us Social Security. He brought us the minimum wage. He brought us unemployment compensation, among other things, basically the social safety net. And Newt was bragging that this is the time to do it. Over at Think Progress, Ian Millhiser writes, Republicans in the House hope to cut Social Security. Now, this is basically the Paul Ryan plan. It's already in the hopper. They've written the legislation. They're just waiting for Trump to be there so that they can pass it and he'll sign it. The Republicans in the House hope to cut Social Security by 20 to 50%. Speaker Paul Ryan's plan to voucherize Medicare would drive up out-of-pocket costs for seniors by about 40%. Then he'd cut Medicaid by between a third and a half. So, I mean, this is the beginning of the assault, and this is, basically totally consistent with libertarian philosophy. So, to figure out how all this is going to work and how the average person is going to get by, let's ask Austin Petersen, former libertarian candidate for president this last year. His website, facebook.com/producer Petersen, S-E-N, and is your Twitter, Austin, really AP4LP?
That's correct, Tom.
Okay. So tell me, if the Republicans are successful in cutting basically Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid in half, how does that help the people or the Republic?
Well, I'm not quite as optimistic as you are that they're going to actually be able to get something like that done. We don't really know what Donald Trump's positions are because he flip-flops so frequently on them. And I don't see them making enormous cuts to Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But as much as I would like to see something like that happen, but yeah, I'm not.
Well, let's assume for a moment, even though Donald Trump has on at least 6 different occasions promised that he is not going to touch Social Security or Medicare. Let's assume that Paul Ryan has repeatedly promised that he is going to do that he wants to, the banksters are salivating, right? I mean, there's $2.5 trillion sitting in the Medicare trust fund. If that money was in Wall Street, they could be skimming just 1% off the top and they'd be making a fortune. And typically they skim a hell of a lot more than 1%. And the same thing with Medicare and Medicaid. The health insurance companies want that money. So let's assume that they get it. Let's assume that your world becomes America. How does that help us?
Well, the truth is that I think most libertarians wouldn't go for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid right away. I think we want to stop spending money on the war machine first. We want to stop bombing people overseas, and we want to stop wasting.
Well, but we're not talking about the war machine, Austin, and and your attempt to change the subject is admirable. But I wanted to talk to you about the New Deal. And the New Deal, yeah, FDR fought World War II, but and it was a giant stimulus program and helped get us out of the Great Depression. But that's beside the point. How does your desire and the Libertarian Party's explicit desire, it's been repeated in their party platforms since well before 1980 when David Koch ran for vice president. Right. How does the banksters in the health insurance industry and the banksters on Wall Street making hundreds of billions of dollars in profit off our retirement savings, off the needs of disabled and poor people, and off the health needs of elderly people, how does that help average working people? I get how it helps the billionaires.
Well, let me just answer. So you said that World War II was the great stimulus program.
No, we're not changing the subject. We're talking about Medicare and Medicaid, the New Deal here.
Okay, well, you did say that war causes stimulus, so essentially World War III might be a good thing for the economy if that's what you're arguing.
That's not what I'm arguing.
Why not go ahead and initiate a greater scale war in order for us to stimulate the economy?
Austin,
people out of poverty.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Right, okay. Yeah, so I don't believe in those programs, but if we would stop wasteful spending in other areas that government, you and I can agree on, progressives and libertarians could agree on, then we could save money, so we could patch the budget, right? So
Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Yeah. David Koch ran on a platform suggesting that these things were destructive of the American spirit. This is basic libertarian philosophy. I don't get it why you're not proud of your own damn philosophy.
I am. I guess my question is, would you prefer a universal basic income if we would get rid of all of these Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Would you prefer?
We're not discussing a universal basic income. The question is, if Paul Ryan is successful in cutting in half or even successfully destroying, because ultimately that's the long-term plan, as Newt Gingrich laid out last weekend at the Heritage Foundation, end Social Security, end Medicare, end Medicaid. If that's the plan, and this is, of course, consistent with your position, what you ran for president on,
sure,
then how does that help the average person who's on Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security?
I think that most people are going to think that they're going to abolish it overnight, so we have to phase these programs out. Of course, if you invested in the NASDAQ versus Social Security, you would receive 3 times the return. The stock market outperforms Social Security every single time, even with the crashes, even with the bubbles, even with the stock market implosions that we've had, the worst stock market implosions that we've had. If you had just kept your money invested in the market, you would have performed better. So I don't think that we need to be ripping the rug out.
So how does that help the 1/3, speaking of thirds, 3 times better or 1/3 better, the 1/3 of all Social Security payments are not for people who are retired. They're for people who are disabled.
Right. Well,
what are you going to do about that?
Solvent, right? We want to make the program solvent in the short term.
No, you want to destroy the program. I mean, that's part of the platform of your party. Unless you're here to declare that your Libertarian Party is full of.
I can't do that. The power of the president, they don't have that authority. Now the Republicans might control Congress, but there are a lot of wishy-washy Republicans and Republicans.
Austin, you're arguing for it. We're not talking about if it's going to happen or not. I'm just trying to understand how could this be better for somebody who is like my cousin, for example. She gave birth to a child who had spina bifida. This child lived until she was 20 years old. She never achieved even the ability to speak. She was in diapers until the day she died. My cousin had to go on Social Security. She couldn't work. Her husband couldn't work. They were full-time caregivers for this kid. How does your program help them?
Well, the first thing we do is we stop stealing from them in the form of taxation. As every good libertarian knows, taxation is theft.
Well, they weren't paying taxes. They were on Social Security.
Oh, so they were never paying taxes. So they couldn't have saved.
No, they were paying taxes. They were working before they gave birth to a child with spina bifida.
Okay, I see. So it's important for us to be charitable, and we should take care of those who are suffering. As a matter of fact,
so your answer is private charity.
I raise money for private charities and private causes like this very successfully all the time, simply by asking my audience. I know that you do too. It's Christmas season, so I would encourage people to be giving. But the question is, if it's a moral question, there's the moral question, and then there's the economic question. And I agree with you on the moral question that we should take care of those who are sick and those who are suffering. The economic question is how much of this can the economy take before we start to look like Venezuela? Now, we're not there yet, and that might be a bit hyperbolic, Tom.
Yeah, it's a lot hyperbolic, Austin. We are not a petro state like Venezuela. Austin Petersen, Libertarian candidate for president 2016, Facebook.com/producer Petersen, SEN. Thank you, Austin.